Hi, my name is John, and this is Business Update. In this week's episode, we'll be talking about the Warner Brothers plan for the DC movies, in particular, James Gunn helming the DC Studios, wherein his primary focus now is creating more Wonder Woman film, which is I have trepidation, which goes to show that things are not looking good for the DCEU. So let's take a closer look on what do I mean. So according to IGN.com, James Gunn mentioned that DC is working on getting Wonder Woman into more animation, focusing more on Wonder Woman character, which is fine by me because she's one of the mainstays of the Justice League members. But the question is, how do you do justice? Is it based on the comics, or are they trying to create their own story, which doesn't even make sense for the character? Because just look at the main films. The first Wonder Woman, which was helmed by Gal Gadot, did really well because it stayed true to the character of how Wonder Woman is and came to be. In the second one, the sequel one was a pretty abysmal, which didn't even make sense for any character with had a great loss, sacrifice, and everything. And what she didn't become a better person, a worse person at that. But anyhow, going to what James Gunn's direction is to focusing on Wonder Woman, which is fine by me. But the question is, shouldn't they be focusing more on the top tier, the number one and number two characters of DC, which is Superman and Batman? And Superman, they haven't even created a sequel for Henry Cavill. Now they've fired him. Who's going to replace him? Which is very difficult to do because with the current generation, will always be compared to Henry Cavill or even to the predecessors of Mr. Christopher Reeves. Would be a daunting task. So it'll take a special individual to be able to do that, plus to have a good story at that. Now, with James Gunn's focus on animation, which I don't see a problem because for the animated versions of DC, I think they tend to do a better job with Superman stories. You have Batman, Battle of the Suns is another. You have John Constantine, then the Flash Paradox, which is going to be translated to a film, which uh, I'm not so sure in terms of the character and the story of how they're going to portray it. If it's going to do well, I hope so, but I'm still on the fringe in terms of until it releases. Wait and see until that time. But in terms of Wonder Woman, going back here, so focusing on her character, obviously there's a lot of ways of going at it, similar to how they try to spin the different story arcs for Batman or even for Superman. In this case, for Wonder Woman here. Now, what's interesting, there was a question. I think they're working on an animated show. They're working on expanding the mythos of Paradise Lost, etc. James Gunn answered, agreed, working on it, which is, should we be excited? Now, no, we're working on getting Wonder Woman into more animation. I agree there hasn't been enough of her in that area and was one of the first thing I brought up to the animation folks. Well, I'd be very careful if they want to focus too much on Wonder Woman because obviously Wonder Woman is one of the main characters, but how you integrate her story into the whole narrative of the DCEU, or in this case the animated verse, would be interesting. So doing it right, is it based on the comics or are they veering away, would be very difficult because it will always be compared to, this is not how the story went in the comics, and why did you, excuse me, change the narrative in the animation here, which is very difficult to do. And not only that, they're also introducing the third sequel for Wonder Woman. So the question is, will it still be Gal Gadot helming the film? Hopefully, she would still be the one because everyone's familiar with her. She did a great job on the first one, not so much in the second one. And in terms of personally, uh, there were a lot of issues brought by her own fault, her own choosing. But you can, no one's perfect. But the question is, the story has to be ideal here. But the question now here is, they mentioned that they're going to offer something else where Wonder Woman is not even included. So how's that going to work out? So what I'm talking about is a TV series called Paradise Lost. a new DCU TV show set on Wonder Woman's birthplace, Themyscira, in the days before Diana, so meaning no Wonder Woman there yet. The show will be like a Game of Thrones part type story, which was already skeptical when they mentioned this game a la Game of Thrones, because Game of Thrones was based from a book by George R.R. Martin, and in this case, if it's not based on the comics, there's no basis. They're going to create it out of thin air, and if the stories, the characters doesn't make sense, then who's going to watch it? The only reason why people watch the island of Themyscira, because it's isolated with Wonder Woman as the main character. And if you're going to focus on someone else, who would care? Right? There are more. That's why you focus on the superhero characters, because that's why the DC comics is based on the superhero. If you focus on the other characters or supplemental characters, then it won't make sense anymore. Then people will not stay tuned for it. Now, if they were trying to replicate similar to how Superman's origin came to be when he was still young, like Smallville, where Tom Welling played the titular character of Clark Kent, the whole series before he turned into the actual Superman, which was the tease the whole time. I think that would make sense. And if they were to do that here, similarly to Paradise Lost, where Diana was growing up during that time, I think that would make sense, because they would see glimpses of her ability when she was still young, while learning the ropes. Then they could, made some sort of crossovers, if that's even possible. And I think people would be just fine. But if there's no Wonder Woman in it, I don't think it's going to do well, which is kind of disappointing, because if they were going to do a show, a la Game of Thrones, then maybe they should have focused on the Green Lantern Corps. I think the dynamic of different individuals, different races in outer space, right, would be more a compelling case rather than this one. That's just my opinion here. Or they could have focused on the Justice League. There were missed opportunities in the past. They could have rectified it moving forward here. So again, there's no direction, which is kind of disappointing. Meaning, imagine what Kevin Feige did was the better one, even though it's now faltering. It's kind of disappointing here. So we'll see. We can be hopeful, but I'm always skeptical now, especially for the two big studios that are helming the big superhero shows or movies, the like here. We'll see. Hopefully, they'll do justice to the main characters here, or to the fans, the superhero fans. Anyway, that's it for this week. Come back again on Wednesday for more business update. As always, if you find enjoyable these types of content, or if you enjoy it, you can watch my previous videos, and also always leave a like and subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe. Also, you can leave your comments so we can start a discussion. As always. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one. Take care.